We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin. 3 young singers who soared to the heights of show business on the current rock and roll craze were killed today in the crash of a light plane in an Iowa snow flurry. The singers were identified as Ritchie Valens, 17, Buddy Holly, 22, and J.P. Richardson, known professionally as the Big Bopper. The aircraft, chartered from the Dwyer Flying Service, crashed near Mason City, ironically the setting for the prominent musical The Music Man. The pilot, Roger Peterson of Clear Lake, Iowa, was also killed. The 3 singers had appeared at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa last night and were on their way to Fargo, North Dakota. Their small chartered plane crashed in a lonely farmyard about 15 miles northwest of Mason City. Cause of the crash was due to inclement weather conditions.
February 3rd, 1959 was a day that's been marked as the day the music died. We're here just outside of Clear Lake, Iowa, at the site of the Buddy Holly plane crash. So let's go check it out and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. It said it's about a 3/4 of a mile, or not 3/4, a third of a mile. So again, it was February 3rd, 1959. There was a rock and roll tour going on, bus tour from town to town, small towns. And Buddy Holly was the headliner. But also on the tour was the Big Bopper and Ritchie Valens. Ritchie Valens was only 17 years old, and he was making a name for himself. Buddy Holly was, I think, 22, 23 years old, and the Big Bopper, who'd been around for a while, he was really coming into his own. And they had just finished playing at the Surf Ballroom, I believe, in Clear Lake, Iowa. The heater on their tour bus had gone out, so it was miserable conditions and everything. Well, while the concert was going on, Buddy Holly's agent found a pilot, Roger Peterson, that agreed to take them to their next stop. Can't remember. I want to say it was Sioux Falls, but I can't really remember exactly. But anyway, they get to the airport. Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper was going to be on there, and there was room for one more person to ride. So there was a coin flip between Ritchie Valens and Waylon Jennings, and Ritchie Valens won. They took off, and it was just a couple of minutes into the flight they hit a storm, an ice storm, I think some wind shear because it was coming down pretty hard, and the rest is history. This is where their final resting place was. Well, not final resting place, but this is where the crash occurred, in the middle of a field. The owners of the field have been so gracious as to allow people to leave mementos and create a memorial for not only the 3 rock and roll stars, but the pilot who was also killed in the crash. This is the day the music died. And you know, 1959, the 50s in general, was such a pivotal point in American music. And, you know, their music in particular touched so many lives. Ritchie Valens was probably the first Latino musician that really hit it big. And Buddy Holly, his music transformed rock and roll as we know it today. He was a pioneer. He pushed the limits. And then, of course, who didn't love the Big Bopper? You could not sit still whenever you hear any of this music come on. Chantilly Lace is absolutely one of my favorite songs of all times. But they paved the way for so many of our musicians today, not only in their style, but their guitar work especially. Buddy Holly and Ritchie Valens were just awesome guitarists in general. So, you know, what would American music, American rock and roll music be like had this tragedy not happened? You know, we'll never know.